Hi everyone, welcome back to the Container Garden series. This series is all about growing different vegetables in containers, whether you have a small space, like right here on a deck or patio, or whether you're growing in a large space and just want to expand your growing space. Today I'm going to share with you how to grow cucumbers in a 5-gallon container. Now, cucumbers are one of those vegetables that it's really hard to find a good one at the grocery store, but they're so easy to grow, you guys, so why not grow your own? And they're also one of those vegetables that you can grow all summer long, plant every couple of weeks so you have a harvest throughout the summertime. They go from seed to harvest in about 6 to 8 weeks, so it's definitely not too late to get some seeds planted. So let's jump into the video. Now, before we plant our seeds, just some basics about cucumbers. They're a warm weather vegetable. They love the summer temperatures. Between 70 and 90 degrees, they do really well. They like full sun. You can start them from seed either indoors or you can plant them directly in your containers. Now, here I have some I started from seed indoors that are just starting to flower and fruit. You guys are going to absolutely love seeing the little baby cucumbers. I just absolutely cannot wait to pick them. They're one of my very favorite vegetables. But today we're going to plant some in this 5-gallon container here. Now, I love to plant them in smart pots because you really do need good drainage when you're planting in containers. And these smart pots fabric containers are aerated. The fabric is really durable, so they're going to last you for many, many years, and they're perfect size to plant cucumbers in. Now, when you're planting in a small 5-gallon container, you really only want 1, maybe 2 plants in your container. You don't want to crowd them. And before we plant our seeds though, I'm going to install some support because cucumbers are vining vegetables. Here I have a little tree branch trellis, and what this support does is it keeps your cucumbers up off the ground. They need good airflow so they don't get diseases, keeps them away from the pests and the critters, and you don't have to get complicated with supports. This is just a little A-frame trellis made out of tree branches. You can make a support or a trellis out of just about anything you can find around your garden. I'm going to go grab some old sunflowers and make a quick trellis for our 5-gallon container. Now, this is a giant sunflower stalk that I grew in my garden last summer. I actually just left it into place to dry. The birds kind of pecked away at the seeds over the summertime, kept them off my tomatoes. Makes a perfect trellis, and it's totally free. And you definitely want to install your trellis before you plant your seeds or plant your transplants. That way you're not disturbing the roots as you plant. So I'm going to trim this down a little bit. It's going to be way too big for my 5-gallon container. I'm just going to lay this on the ground here. I don't even know where to put it. And trim it down to size. I just throw that right there. And I actually had to cut this out of the garden with some serious tools here. But you want your trellis to be about anywhere between 4 to 6 feet. Put in your container to give plenty of room for your cucumbers to climb up it. So here we go. We're going to cut this down. There we go. Now, for the simple TP trellis, you need 3 poles. So I've got 2 sunflower stalks here and a bamboo pole. So I'm just going to lay it down here and tie up the top with twine, and we'll fan it out once we put it into the container. I love this nice thick twine. Looks nice and kind of artsy and kind of a cottagey feel. And we're just going to wrap it around and tie it off. Be a nice little quick and simple trellis for our cucumbers. Wrap it around a couple times and then tie it off. Now we're just going to pop it into the container here, kind of fan it out. Make a nice sturdy trellis for the cucumbers. We'll just kind of push it down in here. I'll make sure it gets all the way down to the bottom of the container. That way it's nice and sturdy. There we go. When you're growing cucumbers in a container, you want to make sure that your container is not too small. So the 5-gallon container really is a great size for it. It's about 18 inches tall by about 12 inches across. You can definitely grow in a larger container if you want, but this one is just super easy to move around. It's got handles, and you can grab these over at CallieKimGardeningHome.com. They're really a handy container to grow in. As far as the soil goes for containers, you definitely want to have a good organic potting mix. Don't fill your containers with soil from your garden. It tends to be kind of heavy, and then the roots roots kind of get bound up in the container and don't grow as well. So in this one, I have our DIY potting mix that we made a couple videos ago. So go back and watch that video because you can really save a lot by making your own soil. And who doesn't want to save money when you're filling your containers, right? So it's nice and light and fluffy. It has coco coir, compost, and vermiculite. It's really a perfect soil for the cucumbers. It'll drain really well, so your plants will grow perfectly. There are so many delicious varieties of cucumbers to grow. It's really hard to choose. I love them all, but one of my favorites is the Space Master cucumber. And this is from my container garden seed collection. 12 varieties in here that are specifically designed for growing in smaller spaces and containers. So this is a smaller variety of cucumber. Absolutely delicious slicing cucumber. And I'm going to pop some seeds in here next to my trellis. When you're growing in a 5-gallon container, it is important that you don't crowd your cucumbers. They need good airflow. They tend to be prone to diseases, and when you crowd them, they just don't do as well because they don't have as good of airflow. So I'm actually going to pop in one seed next to each little leg of the trellis here. And then we'll probably eventually thin them down to 1 or 2 plants. But plant a few seeds just to make sure they all germinate. And we have a good crop here. So all I'm doing is just dropping the seed in the soil, covering up just a little bit, kind of pressing it down lightly. And you want to plant your cucumbers when the soil is nice and warm, around 70 degrees. And usually they germinate so quickly within about 5 to 7 days. Now, if you want to grow a lot of cucumbers, and who doesn't want to grow a lot, right? You want to plant them in a spot that gets 6 to 8 hours of sun a day. However, it is going to be hot this week here in Southern California. We're expecting triple-digit temperatures. So what I like to do when it gets over 90 degrees is cover my cucumbers with a piece of shade cloth. If you've never used shade cloth, it's a super handy thing to have around. It's basically cloth that you can kind of see through. It lets some sun through, but it protects it from getting overcooked in the heat. Because when it gets over 90, the blossoms drop, and once the blossoms drop, you kind of have to start all over again with the fruit production. So that's one great thing about 5-gallon containers, especially with these trellises. You can just drape the shade cloth right over your trellises, and then you've got a little protection there for your cucumber plants. Now, if you don't have shade cloth, what you can do is use an old sheet or a sheer curtain. So again, look around your house and make it work for you. Now let's talk watering. I actually have a drip irrigation hose hooked up in my little 5-gallon container here, which is super easy to do. I'm going to hook this into my drip irrigation here on my deck. If you don't have drip, you guys, don't worry about it. You could easily water with a watering can or a garden hose. Now the seeds I just planted don't need any fertilizer because they've got a nice good potting mix. We'll wait to fertilize it for a couple of weeks. We're just going to water the seeds in. And the soil in here was actually pre-moistened before I planted the seeds, which is super important to do. But you want to water your cucumbers or your container. Keep it nice and moist, especially when the seeds are germinating. And here I have a little plant saucer under my 5-gallon container, which you can put if you're growing on a wooden patio or a deck, if you're concerned about damage to your deck. Watering and fertilizing are where most gardeners get tripped up, but it is really important, especially with cucumbers, that you don't let the soil dry out. When the soil dries out, the cucumbers tend to get bitter. And who likes a bitter cucumber, right? I know I like them nice and sweet and juicy. They don't really need any fertilizing until they get to about 2 sets of true leaves. Like this plant right here has 3 or 4 sets of true leaves. You want to fertilize them about every 2 weeks in containers because the nutrients drain out every time you water. So we're going to water with my tried and true plant cocktail of Vermistera worm tea and Good Dirt plant food. And you guys, the reason why I've used this in my garden for many years is because it works. Keeps it simple. You only need to keep a couple fertilizers around. You don't need a whole storage shed full of fertilizers. Nice and simple. Put it here in the watering can. Because it's water soluble, the plant will take up the nutrients immediately from the fertilizer. And you want to water at the base of your cucumber plants because, again, cucumbers are prone to diseases like powdery mildew, and you want to keep the leaves as dry as possible and give as plenty of airflow as possible to your plant. As your cucumbers grow, you want to tie them up to the trellis to kind of manage the space that they're growing in and give lots of airflow to the bottom of the plant. I love the stretchy tie tape. Grabbed it over on Amazon. It's really fun because you don't have to have scissors. You can just keep it in your pocket, bust it apart, and then just tie up your cucumbers to the trellis. It has these little tendrils here, which will wrap around, but it kind of needs a little bit of encouragement while it's growing here. Just wrap the stretchy tie tape around the stem. and then just tying it to the little tree branch here to keep it in place. Super easy. Super important when you're growing in containers especially is to mulch the top of your containers. And I love to use free sources of mulch because that's what we're all about here, is quick, simple, and inexpensive. One of my favorite sources of mulch is shredded leaves. And these I just collect over the winter time, throw them in a big compost sack, and then I just let them dry out and crunch them up here with my hands. Kind of feels good to get in here with my hands, except Mac doesn't like all the dust here. And then I'm just going to throw a handful, a couple inches here on top of the place where I just planted the seeds. I'm not going to go super heavy on the mulch just yet because I want the seeds to be able to germinate and bust through the soil, and then I can always add more as they grow. And mulch is super important because it helps with water evaporation. Containers dry out a lot quicker than like your in-ground gardens. And especially with the heat wave we have coming, mulch is going to be really important to keep the soil nice and moist here in the container. So you can see how easy and fun it is to grow cucumbers in a 5-gallon container. Now what I want you to do this week is go out and get some cucumber seeds planted. So easy to grow no matter how little or how much space you have. And grab one of my container garden seed collections. It's got the Space Master cucumber in it, or my cucumber seed collection. There's 5 varieties in here, along with a copy of my book. Lots of container gardening tips. You can save $5 when you get the container garden and the book bundle. And I'm also running a sale, 15% off with the code CUCUMBER through Monday, June 14th. And you can also grab your CaliChem 5-gallon smart pots over at CaliChemGardeningHome.com, so you have a nice 5-gallon container to grow your cucumbers in. And every purchase with this sale gets a free packet of basil seeds. Comment below, let me know if you're going to be growing cucumbers in a 5-gallon container. I cannot wait to read all of your comments. Thanks so much for watching, you guys. Hope you have fun planting your cucumbers. We'll see you on the next video.